Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes, and thank you for joining me for day number 13 of my 31 Days of Horror. But today is not just day number 13, it is also Friday the 13th, which happens to have fallen in October this year, which is crazy. And not just that, while I'm doing my 31 Days of Horror, so a pretty cool lineup of coincidences there. But it meant I could only do one thing, and that's why I'm rocking my Jason Voorhees shirt. Got my little mask lamp behind me, and it just means I had to review one of the Friday the 13th films, and I thought, why not just take it from the top? A classic from 1980, here we have Friday the 13th. Now, this film is one that really doesn't need any introduction. I'm sure everyone out there has seen this movie before. I've seen this film more than I can count on my hand. It is a film I watch all the time because I love it and it's a classic. But I will do the plot explanation like I normally do before I get into my thoughts of this movie. So the plot for this one, really simple. A bunch of camp counselors come to Camp Crystal Lake to clean it up, getting it ready for the summer before all the kids get there. But there is someone lurking in the woods who is planning on taking out the counselors and having this camp shut down and have it not reopened for the summer. So that's basically the plot for this one, and let's get into my thoughts of this classic slasher, Friday the 13th. So getting into today's review, it's actually kind of hard to pick a specific spot to start with such a classic film like Friday the 13th. It's a classic of the horror genre, and everybody's seen this movie or knows of this movie, and if you somehow haven't, it's just cemented in pop culture so much you would at least know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows the Jason Voorhees hockey mask. Everybody knows the when like he's stalking around and looking for someone to kill. It's just super iconic. This was one of the first slashers to sort of set the pace for the slasher decade, being the 80s. And I say one of them because there were a couple of others coming around at the time. And of course you had the proto-slashers beforehand, like Black Christmas and Alice Sweet Alice and kind of in a way Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Halloween sort of fell into a little bit more of the traditional slasher. But when you think of a slasher movie, especially one of the 80s, Friday the 13th has got to be one of the first ones that come to mind. It's just got everything that you know of a slasher. You know, the camp setting, first of all, very notorious with slashers. I wouldn't say actually that this is my favourite camp-based slasher. That would probably go to Sleepaway Camp, but this is probably the more iconic one. It's got the crazy old guy warning the campers, hey, don't go there because that place is cursed. It's got Crazy Ralph in this movie. It's just got so many things that makes a slasher iconic, and of course it turned into a franchise with, what is it, like 12 movies now, just off the top of my head. That sounds about right. Friday the 13th, just super iconic, and I think that's a good place to start. So if we're really going to start breaking it down, is this one of the better movies in the Friday the 13th franchise? I'd probably have it around my number 4 spot. It's definitely up there with one of my favourites, but I feel like parts 2, 3, and 4, maybe a couple of others I might put above this one. Is it one of the best slashers of the 80s? Again, definitely up there, but maybe not taking out the number 1 spot. If you really break down this movie, it's very simple and there's nothing overly special about it. It's just a group of camp counselors at this camp trying to clean it up before the kids get there. And the kills aren't as frequent as what you might think or might remember them being. There's just a lot of downtime of the counselors interacting with each other and then the occasional kill to break it up. When the kills happen, they're really cool, the effects are great. The blood and the splatter, the axes, the arrows, the knives, you got a variety in there as well. But yeah, the kills aren't as frequent as you might remember them being or what you might expect them to be. There is actually a lot of downtime in this movie, but what this movie is just easy watching. Like when you just want to sit down, take a breath, and watch a cool slasher, this is a safe one to go to because this is like almost a relaxing movie as much as it's a horror movie, and they're known for putting you on the edge of your seat. This is just such a comfort movie for me, and I've never had a bad time watching this movie. It's just so rewatchable, so iconic. Now, there are so many things I could talk about with this movie and want to talk about with this movie, but I do have something I want to go into in today's review that I honestly don't hear a lot of people bring up, so I've decided I'm going to do it in mine. And it's sort of with slasher movies, it's very typical to have this whodunit sort of element, you know. Yes, you have your franchises where you have an iconic slasher doing it, but with this movie and with a lot of slashers from this time, there's that whodunit element and then the reveal at the end of who the killer actually is. And I am going to go into spoilers, but I think everyone's seen this movie and it's just super iconic of who's doing the slashing in this movie, so I don't think I'm going to give too much away, but a heads up if you somehow haven't seen this movie. But it's got that whodunit element, who's the killer. And they really don't give you too many options. The only option that they really push forward is Crazy Ralph. And if you don't want to go with Crazy Ralph, I guess you gotta sort of suspect one of the other counselors. But then it is revealed, again, spoiler alert if you somehow haven't seen this movie, that the person doing the killing isn't Jason Voorhees, but it's Pamela Voorhees' mum, and she's getting revenge on the counselors for something that happened years ago when Jason was at the camp. He wasn't being watched and he drowned. It sort of comes out of nowhere because she is not mentioned in the movie from memory at all. She just shows up and it's revealed that she's the killer. And even with that being said, Jason himself does not get mentioned at all in this movie until Pamela shows up and says his name. The only mention off the top of my head of Jason is when they're first arriving, they're talking about the tragedies that has happened in the past at this camp, and one of them is, the boy that drowned in, whatever they say, 70 something. They really do not talk about Jason or Pamela. And I guess we're sort of somehow meant to suspect that they're the killers. It's a very weird thing, you know, they're never brought up. It's never one that realistically you would guess if you're watching it for the first time. I find it very, very strange, but it's always something that stuck out with me in this movie, but it is iconic. What a cool twist. Imagine just going back and watching it for the first time and being like, whoa, it was Pamela Voorhees. Like, I still know people that aren't very big horror fans that think Jason Voorhees was the killer in the first Friday the 13th movie, but I'd just love to go back and watch it for the first time and just be like, whoa, how crazy, it's Pamela Voorhees, when I didn't even know she was a character, really. So that's always been something that stuck out to me with this movie. So I'm going to sort of leave my review there. As I said, this is a movie I could talk about all day. It's a classic. It's a comfort movie. It's one, as I said, I can just turn my brain off. It's very simple. You know, some of the later installments in the Friday the 13th franchise, you know, you have to sort of memorize, you know, how Jason was killed and why he's coming back and who this character is and so on and so on. This one, it's just a blank slate and you go in and enjoy. As I said, it's a classic. It's one I can watch all the time. Unfortunately, I kind of don't really love this version of the cover that we get all the time here in Australia. I'm actually going to show you something that I've never showed you guys on my channel before, so just hang on a second. I don't wander off camera a lot, but I want to show off this. Bam! This is my Friday the 13th puzzle that I did, and it's now glued all together. Got the iconic poster in the middle with some of the other posters and movie moments around the side. I've never showed this off on my channel before, but reviewing a Friday the 13th movie, might as well. Yeah, sorry, I don't normally wander off camera. It's a bit more professional than this, but fuck it, it's my channel, can do what I want. But wrapping this up, giving this a score out of 10. I got to give Friday the 13th an 8 out of 10 at least. It's just super iconic. Yes, it has its slow moments. As I said, I genuinely think a lot of people would be surprised if you haven't seen this movie in a while, how separated the kills are. You know, they're not as frequent as what you would first think. But as I said, it's a comfort movie, an easy watch, so an 8 out of 10 for Friday the 13th. And as I said, thank you for joining me for day number 13 of my 31 Days of Horror. Thank you for joining me on this Friday the 13th to celebrate. And I hope everyone is having an awesome October. We're almost at the halfway mark of the month. We're counting down to Halloween. And thank you guys for joining me in this series as well. I really appreciate it. I'm loving the people that are getting involved in the comments. Yeah, and I really appreciate, again, you guys for joining me for today's episode. See you tomorrow for day number 14. Peace.